Hello everybody, and thank you for coming to my presentation. The name of my presentation is Good Actions, Good Intentions, a Global Comparison and a Research Reflection. So some of you might be thinking, hey, I know that girl. And that's because I was one of the presenters at AAPLAC last year. And for those of you that don't know me, my name is Christina Tomasik, and I'm currently a graduate student at LaSalle University, where I also got my bachelor's in early childhood education last year. And here is a picture of me and the other student presenters at AAPLAC last year. So for those of you who did see my project previously, or if you're new here, allow me to catch you up. So in the fall of 2018, I joined a course run by Liz Hartman that was attached to a project going to Antigua. And in that course, I decided to do my first independent research project looking at the voluntourism industry. And in the winter of 2019, I traveled with my cohort to Antigua for a week. And shortly after coming back, I left for a semester abroad in Stellenbosch, South Africa, where I took part in the university's Global Service Learning program that had us teaching in local townships in their kindergarten classrooms once a week. And it was then that I decided to complete a second independent research project where I was actively comparing my time there to my time in the LaSalle course and kind of documenting that process. So in the fall of 2019, I came back with all of this research and all of this experience, and I didn't really know what to do with it. And Liz invited me to be a student representative on LaSalle's shoulder committee that was aiming to revamp and revise the university's programs. And out of that, one of the needs became to create a curriculum that was rigorous and consistent among the programs. And that's kind of where my research came in. And I ended up creating a curriculum for these courses that I completed as my Global Honors capstone. And then in the spring of 2020, I presented the project at AAPLAC. And then this past summer and fall, I worked with Liz to create a research article documenting the process of creating this curriculum that I just submitted to the Undergraduate Journal of Service Learning and Community-Based Research. And now you're all caught up. So the first thing that I want to do is I want to take a time to kind of bring us out of our bubbles of our organizations or our programs, and even out of our AAPLAC bubble, and kind of zoom out to look at the two programs that I was a part of specifically and how the different aspects contributed to the program's respective educational goals. So these are the three main differences between the two programs I was a part of. The first being the demographics of the classes themselves. In the LaSalle Shoulder to Shoulder program, there were 12 LaSalle students and 11 of them came from the education program. And in the Global Service Learning program, there were 21 of us from different countries, and only 3 of us had backgrounds in education. So already the amount of training that your participants have should be affecting your educational goal appropriately, and I think that they do. The class time itself was very different in that we only had about 15 hours of class time in the LaSalle program, and most of that was spent meeting the partners we were working with, learning about things about like Antiguan culture and history, but mostly it was spent creating and preparing the curriculum and materials that we would be using when we were teaching there. Versus in the Global Service Learning program, we had about 90 hours of in-class time that was spent on discussions of things like sustainable development theory, decolonization in different contexts, global citizenship, but also things like South African culture and history. So already the Global Service Learning program presents itself as much more theoretical and much more concerned with the philosophy of service learning, where the Shoulder to Shoulder program is much more concerned with the actual actions and the work itself and the quality of that. The deliverables of the two programs definitely differed as well. The Shoulder to Shoulder program had us creating a teacher toolbox that housed all the materials and curriculum that we created, one for us to pass to the next cohort, and then one to give to the teacher we were working with. We had some informal reflections during the course, as well as nightly oral reflections the week that we were there, and we also had a final reflection and presentation once we came back. Whereas in the Global Service Learning program, we created a digital story kind of analyzing our experience through a video. We also had a formal research paper to write and monthly reflections that had us incorporating research and citations to our thoughts, as well as a final reflection. And I think that these are two good examples of programs that do differ in their audience and then also the structure and the products of the course, but have educational goals that meet that and that reflect that accurately. So the LaSalle Shoulder to Shoulders educational goal for this program specifically was to model and implement collaborative practices, new routines and management strategies in the classrooms we were teaching in, as well as specifically incorporating literacy and technology and really emphasizing the relationship we were building with the teacher we were working with. Whereas in the Global Service Learning program, they were much more concerned with things like critical thinking and self-reflection and engaging with big global issues at a local level. And specifically, they mentioned using community service work as a vehicle to accomplish that. And the collaboration aspect was much more emphasized with the partner that we were working with, as well as with the teacher that we were teaching. So the second part of this presentation will be kind of reflecting on my process of writing a research article for the first time, specifically looking at kind of an epiphany that I had towards the end of this process. And the entire time that I had I was working on this project, I called the curriculum I created the Tomasik Curriculum for Ethical and Sustainable Service Learning, just because I didn't really think of anything else at the time. And it wasn't until right before I submitted it that I asked myself, is this actually what I want to call it? And is putting my name in something that is supposed to be collaborative in essence really the right thing to do? So I opened this conversation with a lot of different people, and the verdict was that yes, I could leave my name in it because it's something that I had worked on solely and created. But it was up to me to determine if that was the right thing to do for myself. And I knew that even if I did leave my name into it, and even if I could get away with it, I would feel a sense of guilt having created something that was meant to teach people to think through their actions and to be intentional with everything they do and be self-reflective and understand how their actions affect other people. For me to not to do that in creating this thing would be super hypocritical, and it opened up these ideas and questions of what is the difference between taking credit for your own work and being self-serving and hypocritical, and especially when you're working in this industry, should we be held to a different standard because, you know, it's kind of our job to know better. And so I did end up changing the name because it felt like the right decision for me, and I changed it to the Good Actions for Good Intentions Collaborative Curriculum for Ethical and Sustainable Service Learning, which is a mouthful, so I've kind of abbreviated it to the Good Actions Collaborative Curriculum. And it reflects this idea that's echoed in my research paper and in this project and presentation that good intentions aren't good enough. And you have to have well thought out and effective actions behind them to have the impact that you want. And if you're interested in using this or just in looking at the curriculum, I have Google Drive links and Dropbox links, and I hope that you're able to take away something from this presentation, whether it be an idea or a new perspective on your own work or just opening up an interesting conversation as well. And I thank you for your time.